Don't touch you! pussy. Real good. Real short shit. Shut the fuck up. Hey, don't.
Unarmed protesters! Are you getting that on camera? Unarmed protesters! Watch out, they're trying to take the street.
If we don't stand up for our neighbors, if we don't stand up for each other, who will? The federal government is waging war on our state. What are we going to do? Fight back!
Who are you protecting? What are you doing?
Our streets! 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 Renee Good! 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 Renee Good!
Oh, the new watermark. Gotta have a watermark up for the live view stream too. We gotta hide the logo though. I'll fix it when we get down there. It's fine for now.
We want an end to the
and we're there. And Albert has told me that we have one of the great things with the law. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us for yet another year. And I want to ask you about this Minnesota thing. The videos we've seen, and Albert will run a little bit of the video, everyone, so we'll warn you, you'll likely see this ICE agent discharging his weapon into this car. If you look at the video, the narrative of this person these ICE agents can do, and how this narrative seems to have been seized. Christine Elm said right away that she was trying to block these ICE agents, and she was really trying to, as a marauder, run them over. So that's the narrative that was initially floated. There is the ICE agent himself. As he goes back to his car, he drives away from the scene in that silver SUV. That's his car. That in itself, I would think, would be a violation of, general protocol, that you would leave a scene where you've just murdered someone. Speak to everything I've just described and we've seen, and give me the law on all of this, if you would.
Well, it's a very tragic situation, and so many things were done wrong by ICE. One of them is that they're not conducting a proper investigation before running their mouths, as you said before. Christine Elm made her statement. That's very unusual in law enforcement. When I was a federal prosecutor, I don't think I ever saw anything like that in my years there. She should say, we're conducting an investigation, we're putting the officer on administrative leave, and we'll get to the bottom of it. They should also allow the state to participate.
You can check out the channel. You can look at it.
What's actually happened is that the FBI and DHS has said that the local and state investigators in Minnesota will not be given access to the evidence. So there's no way that they can conduct a local or state investigation, which again looks like a Russian judgment, looks like the Fed and DHS and Trump know that they have something to hide. Again, as you said before, ridiculous. As Biden used to say, malarkey, because you can figure out very well what the situation was previously. On top of that, a physician starts saying right away, I'm a doctor, let me approach the victim. And they don't allow the doctor to approach. In fact, one of the ICE agents says, I don't care. When he says, I'm a doctor, let me approach and try to help out, he says, I don't care, which I think was symptomatic of what was going on there, that they just didn't care. Then they also took more than 15 minutes to get medical assistance there of any sort. That's ridiculous. That should have been called in, and they should have had medical assistance ready to go. In fact, I should always have medical assistance ready to go, Mark, because the reality is that they have fomented and created these kinds of dangerous situations around the country. They've shot people and wounded people around the country. It's unbelievable that they don't have a rapid response health team ready to go. And I used to talk with Kim and Pat Thurston about the Breonna Taylor case down in Kentucky. And one of the things that made that even more aggravated was the delay in the Kentucky officials in getting medical attention there. So we've seen in these kinds of cases that aspect to it too. And when you turn to the actual situation, they're supposed to approach the ICE and other law enforcement in what they call an L pattern, which means you never let yourself get in front or right behind the vehicle, where if it speeds up or it goes back, it can hit you. This officer who did the shooting got himself in exactly that position.
Further down,
raises the question, once everything else was wrong, once he was in the wrong position, what happened in about a second or two? And I'm not sure that we have really gotten to the bottom of that. That may depend on a lot more evidence and witness accounts. But for what we can see so far, Mark, and again, I've been a federal prosecutor, I've been a criminal defense attorney. People may say, well, I'm always looking for what's the reasonable doubt in a case. Why am I coming to the officer's defense? I'm not. But I think that what's interesting about the case so far is that a bullet is shot through the front windshield. You have to be in front of the car when you're shooting in a bullet. We know that. We know that it went through the front windshield. There were apparently 3 shots. It was fatal. We don't know how quickly. Again, if they had medical attention, let that physician come on the scene. Maybe he could have saved that poor woman's life. We don't know that right now. But we do know that a bullet was shot through the front windshield, which meant the officer, right or wrong, bad training or not, he had got himself in a situation where he was front of the car when it started not to go back anymore, but it came forward. It was not at a great rate of speed. People who say that, well, if it had been at a great rate of speed, that would be a different story. But in that second or two, I think that a fair investigation would see the fact that having gotten in that position, and maybe that's some kind of negligent homicide on his part, but at that moment, in that second or two, I think he doesn't know in that second or two whether that car is coming toward him or veering away from him. There's another video which shows that it actually either grazed him or touched him in some way, just from looking at that second video. And so there is a theory, of course, that an officer, no matter what the situation is, can at least in response to a murder or voluntary manslaughter charge, can defend on the basis of self-defense, even if they have negligently gotten themselves into that situation. And so if people look back at that video and stop it in that second or two, look at the wheels, look at the car going forward. Yes, it's not going very fast, but 3 shots, one of them right through the front. The officer has to be in front, and being in front of that vehicle as it starts to go forward, he's going to say that he has the defense of self-defense, and I think it will. I don't think that the federal government has any interest in prosecuting him. If the case goes to state court, again, the state authorities don't even have the evidence, and also the feds would try to remove it to federal court, which we could talk about that if you'd like to. But you remember when the state DA down there in Atlanta, Georgia, went after the Trump people and Trump himself for making that phone call into Georgia. There was a lot of issues about whether the case had to be removed to federal court, and some of them were, it looked like, going to be successful to have the case brought to federal court. So the reality is, as to this officer, it looks like he's not going to be prosecuted for anything. Come a new administration, this will be within the 5-year statute of limitations. If it's murder, it's not within any statute of limitations. The state of Minnesota could go after him later, Mark. But what I hope is that the outrage, the fury over this, what the mayor himself said, get the F out of Minneapolis, you ICE agents, that this doesn't boil over. Now it is very important that they do not give Trump rope to invoke the Insurrection Act. Remember in L.A., Mark, there was one night that things got out of hand, and from that one night that things got out of hand, from 5 Waymos being burned, Trump tried to justify his entire federalizing of the National Guard, sending in the Marines. That was based on one night. If this thing doesn't stop at night, if there's looting, if there's rioting, and so forth, they will give Trump his excuse. Please don't do that. All of you good people in Minnesota who care about what happens to this country, don't let this lunatic, vindictive president have an opportunity, and then he'll go get himself maybe affirmed by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. This isn't the 9th Circuit. This is one of the most conservative federal courts of appeal that sits over Minnesota.
We can stream right now on Lake Street because I'm in the vehicle.
It's also from the Dakotas. It's over. There's those states there. It's a very conservative pro-Trump place. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. They may allow him to invoke the Insurrection Act, and then we're just waiting for 6 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, for 2 of them to do the right thing, or else we have the Insurrection Act invoked in Minnesota. Please, people of Minneapolis, don't let rioting occur. Don't let the protests get out of hand. Please.
Doesn't this,
there'll be a lot
just on that, seem like maybe a road test for what we'll see around election time, where you have these ICE thugs out on the streets stirring up trouble, neighborhoods coming out, people telling them to get out, then you have federal troops move in because the president invokes this Insurrection Act. You'll see it in blue states, but you'll see it in blue cities. Those are the cities that have typically been targeted by this president. But in a way, I'm just a step out of this, and then I'll get back to the legal ramifications and the court case that might emerge from this incident. But just because you've mentioned the Insurrection Act now a couple of times, doesn't it feel as though what you're seeing is kind of a flavor of what we might be seeing come election time?
Well, at least there would not be a precedent from either the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals or from the U.S. Supreme Court allowing the invocation of the Insurrection Act or monkeying around with the decision. You know, just before Christmas, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a very, I thought, well-reasoned decision, which said that the president has to first try with regular troops. Now, Trump has never tried with regular troops, regular military troops. What he tried to do is to federalize the National Guard out here in California over the wishes of our governor out here, and he also sent Marines out here. He was doing all of that, and the U.S. Supreme Court said no. The only way that you can take those actions is if you first tried and failed to maintain order with regular troops, which means you'd have to first find that the Minneapolis police were not trying hard enough to quell the violence. Then you would call out regular troops under the Insurrection Act to not be bound by that righteous U.S. Supreme Court decision issued right before Christmas. And then you would say that the Insurrection Act was properly invoked because things had gotten so out of hand. You had that decision affirmed before the elections. There will be a lot of grounds, or at least Trump will make up grounds. And right now he's stymied. He's got that U.S. Supreme Court case. I don't think that he really has any broad support, Mark, for the Insurrection Act. That sounds like the Whiskey Rebellion. That sounds like something from the 1800s, early 1800s. And I don't think that there's any groundswell.
But faced with an election that he knows he's going to lose, and I'm glad you mentioned the Supreme Court case because it did hand down this repudiation of the Trump policy when it came to bringing the National Guard in and seizing control. But when did it come in? It came in months and months and months after he'd actually done it. And so when the moment comes that he knows he's about to lose an election, I see this administration as pretty much throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks, including an illegal Insurrection Act. And then I think you're going to find out that this Trump strategy, I'll just use that word, of doing things and then having the court case play out months later may work for him because in the meantime you can put troops on the street.
Mark, that's a great and very thoughtful question. But with the precedent that we now have, you know, before Trump did that in L.A. and in Chicago, there really wasn't a clear precedent because presidents, both Republicans and Democrats, even Trump the first time, had kind of stayed away from what he did to us in L.A. and these huge ice raids didn't really happen in the same way during even Trump 1.0. They stayed away from schools, they stayed away from many kinds of workplaces, they stayed away from churches. So there was kind of an unusual and unprecedented situation. And so it was difficult for judges to say, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order because there's a U.S. Supreme Court case that says until you've exhausted the regular military you cannot federalize it. You cannot send Marines in here. A federal judge, I think, if this happened during the election, Mark, would rapidly enter a TRO, even in red states, even Republican judges, even Trump-appointed judges, because there would be a clear precedent that they could follow right away and say no for both. And so that's why I think we're in a very good stage right now with the law. And again, I asked Minneapolis, someone just sent a thing, they want to stick the troops on them. Yes, there'll be outrage, there'll be tremendous grief. I get it. And there should be protests of the most vigorous, enduring sort. But at 7 o'clock at night, they need to stop before the looters and anarchists start to take advantage of those and give Trump all the rope that he's going to need. Trump knows right now he wants to exploit this situation. Look how he exploited this situation in Venezuela. That's one of the very few things that he's good at, exploiting the compassion, right, and the caringness of his opponents, who are a huge block of the population at this point, and to turn it against them, to somehow manage to turn against all the outpouring of goodwill and love for this woman who was lost, for her family. She's a single mom. She's actually a podcaster. She had a podcast a few years ago. She just seems like a lovely, wonderful
she's a
woman.
Poet. She's a podcaster. She's the only surviving parent. The father, as you say, single mother, but the father passed away. It's not like just a divorce situation where the father might be able to step up. This is
so let's, Mark, what I'm saying is let's honor her name and honor her memory by not giving this lunatic, repressive president
do you guys see the video of the two ICE agents
and that he could then use maybe from the decisions that he would get, because he will argue that the local police have failed. Local police don't fail. Enforce the law. This is not fun and games. Don't give Trump an excuse there in Minneapolis, please.
Mark, ask Katz about the Maduro charges. Will they hold? Where is the evidence? So shifting to the Maduro situation, David Katz, I've always felt that this, we talked a little bit about this in your last visit with us last week, but I always felt that this was a fig leaf, smoke screen. They don't really care about narcotics and him being a narcotics trafficker. This is all crap. Now we're onto the oil, and there might even be an agenda beyond that. But speak to the legal dance that's being done now in New York, and as to C.C. Ryder's question, will these charges hold, and where is the evidence against Maduro?
Well, I had the privilege to be on your show on Monday, Mark. I hadn't been on last Thursday because it was New Year's Day. I hadn't been on the Thursday before because it was Christmas, but I was on Monday because the events of Venezuela were so fresh at that point. It was just over the weekend that Trump had sent the military into Caracas, and they had grabbed Maduro and his wife. They claim it's an arrest. They sent the FBI, they sent some marshal, they read him his rights, and they gave him his Miranda warnings. But of course, we all know that there was a huge military deployment, an armada sitting offshore, and then they grabbed him and his wife. So the question is, I think, first of all, and the case is now in New York City in federal court. There's a 92-year-old judge. Can I just do 30 seconds on that? There's an earlier case from 2020 against Maduro and some of his top officials. One of them was the spy chief, who is, I forget his name, but he's known as El Pollo, the chicken. Great nickname. Anyway, El Pollo apparently got convicted in front of this judge who was then 80-some years old, and now is looking to make a deal, and so he's going to be one of those snitches who wants to roll over and maybe tell the truth and maybe make up any lie that he thinks. Gone senior, but it's not left the bench, and so there's controversy about can a 92-year-old judge, no matter how no matter how great his reputation has been, can he really handle a case that may not go to trial until a year, 2, 3 years from now, when the judge would be 93, 94, 95? So those issues that will come up, one of the first ones will be hey, I was, as Maduro said in court, I was kidnapped. I was illegally abducted from my country. And the U.S. courts, Mark, actually have a doctrine called the Kerr-Frisbee doctrine, which says that that is not a defense to the charges. You cannot raise the fact that you were kidnapped, abducted, illegally seized in a foreign country as your defense. You can suppress the results of an interrogation if you were illegally interrogated anywhere, and you can fight the charges on their merits back in the United States. But you can't say you've got to dismiss the charge and put me back where I should have been, which was in my country, unabducted. So unless they're going to change the law, and I don't think so, those great changes in the law seem to only arise for the right-wingers on the Supreme Court when it comes to like Roe v. Wade. Then you can change the law 50 years. But I don't think they're going to change that law. So Maduro doesn't have much luck there. Now Maduro is also going to say that he's a head of state. That's another interesting one. He was recognized as the head of state by the United States, by Biden and by Trump the first time. But then after it seemed quite apparent that he stole the most recent election, the U.S. government said that no, he's not the legitimate head of government. So he's got to get over the hurdle, even if a head of state is entitled to protection, that he is not the legitimate head of state as of the time that he was abducted and brought to court here. And in that sense, he's different from General Manuel Noriega down in Panama anyway. People always compare their cases now who are aware of both the cases. But he was not even titularly the head of state. He was a general, Noriega. So the head of state doctrine didn't really arise. And where the head of state really arises, Mark, is this is a classic situation from diplomacy. You invite the foreign leader to come to the United States to have negotiations, and then you backstab. You put him into jail. Or somebody comes to the UN, and while they're crossing New York City on the way to the UN from their hotel, you grab them and you say, Chavez, you're under arrest. Netanyahu, you're under arrest. Something like that happens. The diplomatic principle was that, no, you cannot do that sort of thing. But, of course, that's not what happened to Maduro. Again, he wasn't invited here and then betrayed. He was abducted from the presidential palace. So I don't think that his motions are going to really be that great. And I don't think that there's I think that at some point he's going to have to go to trial. I also think it's possible that he gets a pardon. That at some point during Trump's term, he decides that it's in his and Maduro's. It's obviously in Maduro's interest to get a pardon. But it's somehow, and you can just think through some way that Trump can figure out how to make money or push Maduro's vice president around down there, and somehow it makes sense to give him a pardon. And people who think that's unbelievable, this man has just been branded a drug dealer in a federal indictment. Well, the head of Honduras, not only was branded a drug dealer, he was proven to be a drug dealer in front of all 12 jurors. He lost his appeal. He had a 40 or 45 year jail sentence, and Trump just pardoned that fellow. So maybe Maduro, if he plays ball, has a pardon in his future. Of course, there's also his wife. Seems like the evidence against her is weak, and yet that hasn't stopped the New York Post from calling her the Latin Lady Macbeth.
If Maduro comes up with the right amount of money, he will be pardoned for sure, says Ms. T. Jules. Yeah, I always wondered, since the Hernandez pardon, what will happen. But I thank you for sort of running that. It sounds to me like the fix is in, on some level.
People are going to see what they want to see.
To run this guy into prison is going to be kind of a short run. Is there a way in which is there the same presumption that he'll get a kind of real handling of his case in an objective judicial way? Is that presumption even reasonable, or is the reality, as I say, there's sort of it's a kangaroo court?
No, I don't think he's going to face a kangaroo court.
They've unironically done all of the shit they claim to hate. Cancel culture, safe spaces.
Whether that 92-year-old judge stays on the case or not, there are very fine judges in the Southern District of New York. It's a premier district, I should say, like L.A., like the Central District of California, where I was a prosecutor. But, those are the premier district, along with some others in the United States. The judges are very good there. There have been some rulings that have been against the Trump administration from that.
Right here.
Actually, this is, I think, the judge who let Michael Cohen get out of jail when he said, "Hey, Trump is just keeping me in jail because it's a political thing and a revenge thing." And I think this is the Judge Hellerstein in New York who let, and he's ruled against the Trump administration on some other things. So I think he's going to do his level best to give Maduro and his wife a fair trial. There is this snitch who's going to say basically all the drug running that I did. First I went to El Comandante and I said, "Is this fine that I'm running these drugs?" And he's going to say Maduro said yes, yes, yes. And the wife supposedly said yes, yes, yes. And one of the things they're supposed to have done, Mark, is given diplomatic passports to people who were not diplomats, but were known to the Maduros to be drug smugglers and drug runners. And that would allow the people who got the diplomatic passport to get through the normal surveillance that their airplanes or their persons would get because they had diplomatic pouches now. I don't know how much you can really smuggle in a diplomatic pouch.
I mean,
let's be realistic. I think a lot of this is really fanciful. I think whatever you think of Maduro, and he was a thug, and his wife might have been a thug or whatever the word is, a lady Macbeth thug. If you believe all of that about her, they were running a country. They were running a socialist revolution down there. They had a lot of other problems. And if drugs were being transshipped from Colombia, I think it's more that I think what really happened there, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I think what really happened there is they didn't do more to suppress it. Maybe they could have done more to suppress it and control it, but here were powerful generals, powerful people who were on the Maduro side. The country was incredibly polarized. Why make so many waves, whatever that person is doing? And I think it's going to be very unlikely that the Maduros knew the details. You know, one thing, you look at these indictments nowadays, and I'm a criminal defense attorney right now. I have indictments I'm looking at right now defending people on, they try to be very detailed. Now they even have photographs as part of the indictment, which like show the guy, let's say he's fencing goods. They show him in the process of fencing goods right in the indictment. They also tend to have lots of quotes. You know, that's one thing that Jack Smith had with all that he's been, you know, vilified by these Republicans who are still Trumpsters. Very detailed. Remember that, Mark? He would lay out exactly bits of evidence. You don't see that in any of the of this indictment. The superseding indictment doesn't say on such and such a date he met with so and so and he told him whatever you do, bring the drugs through this place, bring it through Miami, bring it on a ship. There's nothing like that. So, you know, people are going to sit there. It's not going to be a kangaroo court. It's going to be a chicken court. It's going to be El Pollo, and they'll get other people who are facing 40 or 50 years, and they'll say, that's the guy who told me what to do, and his good lawyer. The other thing, he can afford good lawyers. So from what I've seen so far, Mr. Maduro has the same lawyer that Julian Assange had. He got him quite a good deal after all those years that Assange was in the embassy and all that kind of stuff in London. The other lawyer, here's another thing, if you don't mind me getting inside baseball, the woman, that Mrs. Maduro, had two nephews, I think they're her nephews. They did get caught in a drug conspiracy involving the United States. They got convicted. They got imprisoned, her two nephews. And then there was a prisoner swap 3 years ago where they swapped some people that Venezuela had grabbed for some American prisoners, including the two nephews of the so-called Latin Lady Macbeth. So the plot thickens, Mark.
Oh my God, that's wild. That's a great fact. I didn't know. All right, so let me just, in summary, here.
It was literally like he shot her, and the ICE agents were like,
in the case of the Minnesota.
And then they were like laughing later.
What I think is a clear act of cold-blooded murder on the part of that ICE agent. It sounds to me like what you're saying is the government seizing control not only of the narrative but of the investigation, and that in all of these different ways they will cocoon this ICE agent from any sort of real justice, I guess might just be the way to put it.
So well said.
And so that's where we are, and you also accompany that analysis with a warning saying, great to protest in Minnesota, do it during the day, but at night, please don't give them the ammunition, if you'll pardon that expression, to bring in additional troops for the invocation of the Insurrection Act, etc. So do your protesting during the day, but keep the streets of Minnesota free of that at night. This is from Anthony Aguilar, de Opreso Liber, I don't know, whatever. The $10 super chat. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Yeah, George Orwell, they are lying to our faces. Rise up. Of course, that's true. We've talked about the fact that
civilian in South Minneapolis
I have my mug that says Project 1984.5, which I think is
both our country
exactly
and
right.
Israel,
and
probably by Russia too.
And in the case of Maduro, it's also. It sounds like a government effort to, they're not so dissimilar in the sense that it's a government effort to kind of create a narrative without, again, a lot of the specifics that would support that narrative. So
I don't think he actually
the Maduro situation is a little squishier is what I'm getting from you, but it sounds as though it's going to be very dependent on a court that is predisposed toward conviction.
Well, let's talk about the situation in Minneapolis first. And I am incredibly sympathetic to this woman and her family and to the protests. I hope, again, that there are lots and lots of protests. I hope that the whole country, they're protesting right now in Los Angeles, I think as we speak, all over the country. And I think it's great that they're vigorous and they're heartfelt, and that there's, if there are millions of people in the street, that's great. Maybe the Democrats, among other issues, will run on this. I mean, ICE is so unpopular. This is not the America that, we know and love and cherish. The mission is so misguided. They're not getting the worst of the worst. The statistics have shown that it's well over 50% of the people who are being apprehended who've committed no crime whatsoever. And of course,
let me just interject one thing. I think one of the things, I've made this point before, but let me just make it again right now. I think one of the things that really does make a difference and helps sort of feed the anger about ICE is the video. There are so many videos of what ICE agents are doing, the ruthlessness, the ugliness, the deliberate cruelty of ICE agents. These are thugs on the streets of America. And the fact that it's being recorded and then disseminated on all these different platforms, I think helps Americans understand how ugly it is, and it creates what you're talking about, which is the anger about it, and that's why it polls so poorly, and it's a political winner for those who are talking about it. My legal question for you on this is, might there be a moment at which they make reporting these law enforcement, again I use it in quotes, actions on the part of ICE, when they make reporting those actions illegal on the part of many of these citizen journalists? What might happen in that way that would blunt what I'm talking about?
Well, I think that you have a First Amendment right to not have the government impede you from standing there, recording it, disseminating it. I think the courts will be pretty good, on that. We had a case out here in LA where a cop, sheriff, goes out to an area north of Los Angeles. A woman is, acting loud, as she has a right to act loud, and she wants to start recording them right away. Sheriff takes an immediate dislike to that, handcuffs her, throws her to the ground. That case went to a jury trial when Biden was president, in front of a Republican-appointed judge who wasn't trying to cut the government any breaks in a case like that where a deputy sheriff was on trial. The deputy sheriff was found guilty. He was about to be heading to sentence. 4 people resigned from my old office, the U.S. Attorney's Office. A guy named Robert Keenan, we've talked about him before. Robert Keenan sees his chance to go handle that case. He goes and handles that case. He asks first that ultimately he asks that the case be totally dismissed. Here's a case where a jury has found the person guilty of a felony. First, Robert Keenan asked the government to ask the court, Republican-appointed judge, to knock it down to a misdemeanor and then to dismiss it entirely. That's under the Trump administration. So they have a record of not treating these cases seriously at all. That case was dismissed is a total outrage. Unfortunately, that woman is suing. You can't stop anybody from suing anybody in America. There are some issues about trying to sue a federal officer. That's, of course, that famous doctrine of qualified immunity. But one of the issues in qualified immunity, Mark, is whether the training and experience is such that you would know that this was illegal conduct. And so the argument is going to be qualified immunity does not save this shooting cop, as you call him, this murdering cop. Does not save him because it was very clear from the training and from the record he's not supposed to do this. He's not supposed to be in front of the car in a situation where he can get hit. And then, he's using deadly force in a situation where this will be some argument back and forth. Please, people, don't scream at me. There will be, Katsadamas says, there will be some argument back and forth whether he had a right to use deadly force because he was really in danger in that second or two that the car is actually coming toward him. And he's in front of the car in a situation where he can shoot into the front. He doesn't shoot her from the side. He shoots her from the front. He has to be in front of the car to shoot that bullet through the front windshield as he does. But I agree with
just to be clear, he was in the front. He was in the front toward the left front fender. He wasn't directly in front of the vehicle.
Maybe he's shooting her like that, but I'm just saying that will be, to me, I think about the only thing that will be controverted in the case. Let's say the Democrats come to power and they decide to prosecute that case, which is well within the 5-year statute of limitations, when I believe the Democrats will be back in the White House and will be controlling the Justice Department and DHS and all of it. They'll have all the records. And if and when they prosecute him, I think that will be the legal issue. We'll talk in 3.5 years, Mark, and we'll see.
Yeah, maybe Merrick Garland will do that, huh?
Mark. It won't be Merrick Garland. They'll get somebody with cojones.
Garbage.
They'll get somebody with cojones this next time.
Thank you. This is the last piece of. We'll show it to you again, and you can see. I mean, you're talking about this guy in front. I get he's in the left front.
Slow it down right there.
Vehicle. Yeah,
Can you slow it down right there? That's him, right behind that guy.
Yeah, but he's not directly in front. He's sort of in the kind of the left front headlight, sort of.
Show it again.
Yeah.
He's backing up now.
Now she's backing up, which is certainly
now
not
here comes
anybody.
Here he comes and he goes and gets himself in this terrible position.
Left
He's not even
front,
thinking.
Look,
what if he turns and starts going forward? He apparently hasn't had that thought cross his mind, so he's standing sort of in front of it.
Yeah, but then he's on the side, and the left. The following, I thought he discharged his weapon from the side as well. But this
the bullet does go through. The bullet does go through the front windshield. That's not disputable. Mark, I'm
out of time, David Katz. I'm out of time.
Mark, one last thing, if we have a second, on Maduro.
Yeah. What is your prediction, Katsadamas, on Maduro? Just bottom line this.
I'll do it real quick, but the fact that it's a violation of international law does not give Maduro, I think, any rights in the courtroom. I mean, they'll litigate that, but I just don't think that it does. We have doctrine that says that basically we can violate international law in our courts. People may think that that's unbelievable, but there's no body that we've recognized the jurisdiction of, like the International Criminal Court, that supersedes the Supreme Court. And our doctrine here in the United States is that a violation of international law in this situation does not give a criminal defendant rights to have the case dismissed.
So it cannot be dismissed under international law for the abduction of Maduro, if you will, as you should put it. We have the Katsadamas. You saw it up there, the caricature of you as the great predictor. You are the great predictor. What is your prediction on the Maduro court case, please? Guilty or not guilty?
I think probably both of them get found guilty. I think her, because of her involvement with her nephews, not that her nephews who are back in Venezuela, I think are going to testify against her, but I think that there'll be people who are involved in that case who will say that she had enough of a role in it that she'll be found guilty. And I think that Maduro, there'll be some people who will give him a fair trial, so he's got, I think, a chance of a hung jury. But I think in general, there'll be so many people clamoring to testify for the government. Yes, there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, Mark. That's a high standard. But when you have 4, 5, 6 of these people, and they're all giving their accounts of what happened, it's just hard for jurors to think, you know what? All 4, 5, 6, they could bring in 20 of them. They would all lie to save their own skin.
in South
And so I think that they'll probably both be found guilty. I think there's a good chance they'll both be pardoned during Trump's term.
And they'll both be pardoned during Trump's term. Wow.
I think there's a good chance that they'll both be pardoned. Yeah, some of them.
That is extraordinary. I would not have predicted that as
what?
Yeah, I know.
The Honduras president. He's sort of precedent, isn't he?
Yeah, but you're right. That was through Roger Stone, also big money. Will the Maduros be found guilty or not guilty? I asked Mr. Predicto. I hate to put you up against Mr. Predicto, but yeah.
Now is not the right time to tell you.
Okay, Mr. Predicto, he is not willing to go out on a limb.
Well, I have the temerity. And not the timorousness of your Mr. Predicto.
I'll ding both. All right. You can find David Katz across, as I say, the spectrum of broadcast offerings, News Nation, BBC, etc., Fox News Channel, and here on Thursdays. Thanks, David Katz. Appreciate you.
My pleasure to be with all of you.
All the best, my friend.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Wow, I do love it. I do love a good conversation with Katz. He really brought it today, didn't he? Man. Well, it is getting late. I can attest to that personally, says Anthony Aguilar, de Oppresso Liber. They come after whistleblowers. It's their attempt to hide the truth. The light will defeat the darkness, though, says Anthony Aguilar. Look, there's no question they come after whistleblowers. Talk to our first guest, Bill Black. Google him. I mean, they've iced him, and he really broke open the SNL scandal. Good morning, everyone, and Mark from Chaplain Fred with a $4.99 super chat. Will you be talking about Newsom's speech that he is doing today? It's very bold. I'm not going to be. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm not going to be talking about it today.
But
tomorrow we'll have video of the speech that he gave today.
Yeah, thank you. Let's do that tomorrow. But thank you, Chaplain Fred, for putting it on our agenda.
What they're doing out here,
it's an agenda that's packed. We kind of, as much as I love David Katz, I do not share his view that the courts will do what is right anymore, says Phil the Thrill. The courts are so politicized now that the law doesn't matter anymore. No trust in the courts. Well, I think the courts on some level were always politicized, but I take your point. And now it's gone to an even more intense level. What the F?
Oh, sorry.
You knew when an obscene amount of money was directed to ICE that it meant that they would blanket the country, and the fact that they hire almost anyone was going to result in avoidable tragedy, says Hilo Karen, and of course you're right. And we made that point at the time. The minute they supercharged the ICE budget, we said, this is what's going to happen. This is the thuggery that is now going to infest all of the U.S. cities that they want to go up against. Trump pardoned Tina Peters for election interference in Colorado, but the governor blew him off, so he vetoed the law that Congress passed regarding their water. That's right, 2009. Thank you. That's exactly right. But you saw what happened. Congress overrode that veto. Isn't that right, Kim? I think I'm pretty right about that. I mean, I am right about that.
In St. Paul.
I'm humbly right about that.
Wow.
It's one of two vetoes that were overruled. So, kind of a big deal.
What the hell?
Why the F would people in Greenland tell the world that the USA could take control of the capital of the country in 30 minutes? Why? Says Teacher Laura. What was the 30 minutes thing?
I didn't hear that they did.
They did. I'm sure they did. Maybe that's what she said. I don't know. A masked gunman from the government shooting civilians, says Mike Boat. Y'all better nip this in the bud before it is you that they are hunting. Exactly. I mean,
are they just patrolling? Or
that's what we've said too. I'm telling you, these ICE thugs are everywhere, and you can see the law is not something they feel bound by. Vance is now telling the press how the video should be viewed and exactly what they are seeing in the videos. Wow, says Randy. Do you believe your eyes or those a-holes, says Lucy Corbiere. Yeah, exactly. It's the, believe me or your lying eyes. Don't believe what you see and hear. Trust the administration to tell you the truth, says Remarkable. We all saw the video, says Lucy. He murdered that poor lady, then would not allow a doctor to go and try to save her. That is true. I agree. Vance is again impugning this woman, asking what mother would do this and saying that she was radicalized into her actions. Yeah, says Randy, and it's just total. Maybe there is an asterisk in the Trump Bible at the place where it says not to kill, says Ole Hansen. J.D. Vance is laying part of the blame on the press. Typical, says Randy. A lot of Randy here. Randy should get his own show, don't you think, everybody?
Yeah,
I think Randy should.
He has some good things to say today,
Yeah, no, Randy, he typically has good things to say.
Yeah.
Randy's and Ole Hansen are saying the same thing, that this is what I don't understand. Vance is telling us that his interpretation of the video is the only correct interpretation. Yeah. And yet these guys are talking out of their ass about it. I also think that, look, if there was truth on your side, you would allow the Minnesota investigative agencies to be involved in all of this, and you're not. You're boxing them out. So the feds have not allowed, if you're just joining us, the Minnesota investigative agencies to have anything to do with it. So they've seized this entire matter such that the investigative agencies from Minnesota will have no ability to investigate.
And I just don't trust that any investigation done by the federal government will say anything other than what Trump wants it to say.
Of course, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. But Noam says Minnesota's investigators have no jurisdiction to investigate this ICE shooting.
Latest update, Phineas says, latest update is that ICE told the woman to leave. She did, and they shot her. It is just that plain and simple. I do think it is really not that hard, and yet it's a pretty brutal chain of events. Anything else that we've got to go? I'm sorry. Wish I could stay longer. But tomorrow is Friday, is it?
No, yes, tomorrow is Friday.
No.
And we have some exciting guests on the show. We got Mo Kelly and Michael Schur who will be returning, and an LA Times columnist is going to swing by as well. This is Gustavo. Gustavo
Arellano.
Right.
He is brilliant and does a brilliant piece in this week's LA Times that I'd love to talk to him about, and I'll bring him to you in hour 1 tomorrow of this show.
And then, of course, the culture blaster, Michael Snyder.
Can I leave you with something nice and warm-hearted?
Please.
Can you pull this together, the cat picture?
Oh, yeah, I did. I do have the email that is in the show document toward the end.
Well, before I leave you, it's in the show document. So are you calling Albert to do it, or can you do it, Kim? Because
there's
Al,
the
thank
picture.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Albert. You're wonderful. And that is a 2-year-old tuxedo cat waiting to be adopted. Her name is Minerva. This is from Linda B. That's who is sending us this. I volunteer at Pets in Need in Palo Alto, an exceptional no-kill shelter, she says. They service most animals. We've had a duck in residence on the past 2 weeks, and this is my dream job since I retired. I'm a cat socializer. I fall in love with new kittens and cats every week. 63 cats were adopted the past few weeks. Way to go. Pets in Need is the name of the organization. And I'm so delighted, Linda B. You're a supporter of the show. You know, I'm a cat lover and animal lover myself. And it means so much that you do that great work. And it warms my heart on this day that has been so full of darkness that you bring us some light. So
the only problem with this job is that I would go to be a cat socializer and want to bring them all home with me.
Now, it is hard to resist, isn't it? I think that's true. Yeah. But I love this always.
What she didn't say is she's the one that adopted all 63 cats.
Yeah, that could be. I'm still a dog guy, says Spencer J. Well, you don't have to make a choice, man. I mean, it's fine. You can make that choice, but I'm just saying, as long as you don't hate on cats, it's fine to be a dog guy. Dogs are wonderful, too. But in any case, I think it's just sweet. Dogs, cats, whatever. When you give of yourself, your time, and you work toward the adoption and taking oftentimes forgotten creatures and giving them a chance, it's a great, great thing. So, big show tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for being here. And now, the great Shadow Stevens takes us out.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, thank you. Albert, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Bill Black and David Katz. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.
Trying to get out of the situation, and she was murdered in cold blood, Katie. That is my opinion, and people can say whatever the hell they want, but I'm giving you my editorial opinion of what happened.
I mean, that first shot is the one that could be arguably in self-defense. The police officer is trying to stop the car, and maybe the police officer got nudged. The president said that he was hospitalized and luckily looked like he was going to survive. He seems to be fine because he's walking around directly afterwards. It's the subsequent shot or shots that have law enforcement officials saying that there is no justification for this and that woman should not be dead given the circumstances of what happened.
And I am certain that whatever side you are on this debate, I think we're in all general agreement that this is an unspeakable tragedy. So if you want to just step back. Or the stench that somebody is giving from the Oval Office, let's talk about that and how it relates to this shooting. So in the first 8 days, we have taken over Venezuela. We're going to, quote unquote, run Venezuela. We're threatening one of our NATO allies with military action. I mean, the White House has basically said that. Ms. Leavitt has said that military options are on the table to take Greenland. That could be a distraction. We'll talk about that in a second. We've threatened Iran. We've threatened Cuba. And we've told our ICE agents to, quote unquote, and this is Donald Trump's own words, not mine, get rough. I want you to get rough with people. And you and I both know that they've flooded the zone with these ICE agents, many of which have not been trained properly, and they're inexperienced in these very volatile situations. So
yeah, I mean, really not been trained. They've cut the training from 6 months to 6 weeks.
Yeah, and so this is an example of everything that's going on right now, Katty. And I'm just going to say one last thing, get you to respond to it. This sucks from a presidential leadership point of view. Okay, this is absolutely reprehensible that you have a leader of supposedly the free world that doesn't understand the mantle of his leadership and is not figuring out a way to dial down the rhetoric. At the same time all of this is happening, okay, he wants a $1.5 trillion military buildup, and he wants to build the dream military. So my question back to you, is this fascist behavior? And before you answer the question, Katty K, let's talk about the flooding of the zone of disinformation on January 6th on the website, the military buildup, the imperial flex outside of the country, and let's talk about the acts of violence by a Gestapo-like police agency known as ICE. And so pushing it back to my favorite Brit in the world, is this fascist behavior, Katty K?
What are we? So we're Thursday, 8th of January. We're recording this at 9:21 a.m. and we're already bringing up the F word, which is not the same F word, by the way, that the mayor of Minneapolis has used this morning.
Not my favorite F word, by the way, but it's in my top 5.
Look, it's interesting that you drew that common thread, because that's where I went this morning too when I was thinking about how to frame this, because I do agree with you that there is a kind of common thread that the use of force is justified when it's used by us, that being the White House, in order to further our agenda, whether it is Venezuela, these ICE agents furthering the agenda of deporting millions of people who are in the country illegally, whether it is the threat against Greenland. And I agree with you, actually. I think it's so interesting that you bring up and I'd encourage everyone to go to the White House's new web page describing the events of January the 6th, which completely retell history and blame this entire action of January the 6th actually on the kind of federal agents who were there, saying that they kind of started all of this. It's a stunning rewriting of the events that we all watched on our, don't believe your lying eyes, but I was there watching it, you were there watching it, and this is a rewrite of it. And there is this common theme that if we use force, it is always justified. I mean, you had Stephen Miller go out, we spoke about this earlier this week, you had Stephen Miller go out on CNN and effectively say that. So I think you're right that there's a common theme. We can have a debate another time about the use of the word fascist and whether it describes a specific ideology. But there is a real flex going on. And you're seeing it in the response to this shooting in Minneapolis with Kristi Noem, the Secretary for Homeland Security, going on television within seconds before she had any of the facts around this case, before an investigation is conducted, and saying that this woman is a domestic terrorist and that this was an act of domestic terrorism. She was kind of contradicting one of her own, Tom Herman, who's the border security czar, who was saying, I haven't seen the video yet, there needs to be an investigation, although even he has rowed back. And they're basically blaming this from the White House on saying, listen, if you resist in any form, even if it's a constitutional form of protest, our law enforcement officers, then you are to blame for what is happening. And that's the line that you're hearing on Fox News this morning, that you are to blame because you are resisting law enforcement. Now, you've got a congressman from Texas, Wesley Hunt, coming out saying the deal in this country is if you obey an officer, you get to keep your life. That's not my reading of the history of the American Constitution or of law enforcement in this country. I mean, I think it's very hard to make the case that this woman should have been killed for this, and then that the ICE officers prevented a self-identified physician, a doctor, from going to her car, which had crashed into another car, and checking on her. And we don't know what position she was in. Maybe she was dead already, but a doctor went up to that ICE officer and said, can I go and check on this woman? And he said no. And I think you've said this before, Anthony. Is the cruelty the aim here? Is that what it is?
No, the cruelty is the aim. These are repressed, angry individuals that run the White House, and whatever is bothering them, they want to inflict this pain on the rest of the world. And
some of these new ICE recruits are being sent into the field before their security background is cleared. We don't know the situation of this guy, but we don't know who these people are hiring or how they're training them.
They get a lot of satisfaction out of human suffering, Caddy. But I want to go back to the fascist term for a second, because Simon Cooper, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, Kuper, FT, this morning. I'm just going to hold this picture up for people watching on YouTube. That is a picture of Donald Trump dressed like Don Corleone. He says no, he's not a fascist, but he's running the government like a mafia don, and his belief is that the highest human purpose is self-enrichment. And I think it's a very interesting thing. Now, I want to show you something, Caddy. And again, people listening, this is a picture of me and Donald Trump from the week that I was in the White House. Can you see that, Caddy? That is the New Yorker. And that was going to be the front page of the New Yorker. That's me talking in Trump's ear as a consigliere and Trump as a mafia don.
The Trump whisperer back in the day.
Trump whisperer. Okay, see that? Now, I was fired unceremoniously, thank God for that, and a result of which this New Yorker cover never aired, but the guy that did the rendition of it sent it to me in the mail, which I've kept. Okay, in the beginning, I thought, wow, that's a pretty big slur against the Italians. As I've gotten older and wiser, I think it's the right application of the analogy. I think he's acting like a mafia don, and I think it's very important for people to understand what he is doing and why he's doing it. He wants $20 billion for his family. He clipped off 5 in the first year. He's going for another 15. He wants to flex on everybody and intimidate the daylights out of them, whether they're in corporations and businesses or they're small people in Minnesota or Minneapolis. He wants everybody in fear of him while he goes after all this stuff. Moreover, just let me finish this point. He said to the Congress, his Republican buddies in the Congress, hey, guys, we got to get our stuff together for this midterms because I've got to win these midterms. Otherwise, I'm going to be impeached, Caddy.
Yeah, that was stunning, wasn't it?
I'm going to cede for a moment the F word, okay? But there are F word-like tendencies going on, but it really does feel like a family operation. And it really does feel like a family operation with acolytes that are going to do his bidding, okay, while he is in that office. And his job, as far as he can tell, is to take as much as possible from everybody. That would mean their sanity. That would mean their well-being. That would mean their lack of stress. He wants to stress out everybody. And he enjoys it, Caddy. And so lest anybody think that, oh, no, this stuff is accidental, he gets up in the morning and he says to himself, how can I inflict pain? How can I punish and hurt people? And how can I divert their energies while I'm taking money for myself? Okay, and that's exactly what he's doing. And listen, people can say, oh, he's not doing that. No, he is doing that. And you can watch MS Now or Fox News. Objectively, that's what he's doing.
Can I ask you something that first of all, I thought that the comment he made to the Republican caucus in Congress saying you have to win the midterm so that I'm not impeached, not you have to win the midterm so that we can, get prices down for American voters, or you have to win the midterm so that we can make America safer for American voters. It was about you have to win the midterms for me so that I'm not impeached. I thought that was telling. It's so interesting how you frame it and put it in the context of something else that I've been thinking about this morning, which is how there's a trashing of the rules that is sanctioned at the moment. And I think what's interesting about this Minneapolis case, if you dig into the kind of specifics, and everybody can go through the video and draw your own conclusions, but it is DHS policy, and I'm going to read from DHS rule books here. DHS law enforcement officers are prohibited from discharging firearms at the operator of a moving vehicle. And obviously the reason is that you don't want to put a kind of 1,000-ton vehicle without a driver in it because there could be pedestrians in the street. I mean, we're very lucky that there weren't pedestrians in front of this car. The woman was not capable of driving it. The car crashes. We're lucky there weren't other people sitting in the car that she crashed into because they could be dead as well. And that's why there are the guidelines. So you have rules. But for Trump, whether it's on the international stage or whether it's domestically, is there almost a relish in breaking the rules? It's not just that it's okay to ignore the rules.
Yeah.
And obviously lots of politicians and presidents have ignored the rules. I'm not naive about that. But there's a sort of that people in Trump's orbit seem to promote almost as a virtue.
Well, I not only agree with all that, but remember, the rules are what he makes them to be. Remember, so what are the principles and policies of MAGA, whatever I want them to be?
He said that this week, right?
Yeah,
he said
right.
MAGA is me.
Right. Well, that rule book that you're describing, throw that rule book out. Whatever I say the rules, right? Who said it? Was it Louis XIV? I am the state. Okay, I am the rule book. I am the way. And by the way, I'm very good at deflection and diversion, and I'm very, very good at starting a prairie fire that will cause the liberals to go crazy, and then I can talk about them like they're liberal hysterics.
Which is what you have Vance tweeting this morning, right? Do you think this officer was wrong in defending his life against a deranged leftist who tried to run him over? You got Jesse Waters on Fox News saying she had pronouns in her bio and leaves behind a lesbian wife and a child from a previous marriage. I mean, the kind of whipping up of the culture wars wrapped into this case is also pretty stunning.
Again, as a human being, Caddy, and I say this with great sadness, that we have a death of somebody. We've just had an extinguishment of human life, which to me is prima facie a tragedy. And we have nobody on those media outlets that are dialing it back. And there's nobody, when Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, Bobby Kennedy's dad, RFK Sr., got to the microphone. He was running for president, and he said, we've got to dial this back. We have to find our commonality. We have to heal ourselves. We have to take down the violence. We have to find unity and comity. Is anybody doing that, Caddy? No. And Trump doesn't want that. Trump wants us in this fight while he's out for his money grab. And he's doing something very interesting in Greenland that I want to position to you. I know we're going to talk about Greenland in the break, but it's a diversion. It's another diversion.
Yeah.
It's not going to militarily strike Greenland. I maintain that. But he's trying to create a diversion while he's got something else underfoot. Okay, and by the way, Caddy, this was predictable. Okay, we could all look at this alarmed and say, oh, wow, what a tragedy. But if you sat down in a boardroom with me and we workshopped potential scenarios with this level of ICE aggression, with this level of lack of training, okay, you'd say, okay, at some point, somebody's going to get hurt, and we're going to have a two sides argument. One, it's going to be murder, and the other side, it's going to be self-defense. But why are we, who are people, are trying to be a great nation, why are we in the bog? You see, there's an element of us that is knuckle dragging. I get that, and perhaps that is a primordial sense for all of us. But this was, and I believe continues to be, an aspirational country. Okay, this was when I was traveling in Europe with my backpack, and I was a student, and Europeans were like, yes, I love America. Someday I want to get there, and maybe someday I'll make my own American dream there. Okay, do we want to fully extinguish that for Donald Trump? Is that what we want to do? And so that's where we are right now. And so Fox doesn't care because they're going to get the people on the right banging the drum while those people are watching the selling of catheters and walkers and wheelchairs on commercial breaks, interrupted by Jesse saying that nonsense. They'll be like, yeah, that's right. Who cares? That was a lesbian. Let's murder the lesbian. So, and she was a lesbian trying to defend criminal Somalis. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And then the left will say these are thuggish murderers. Now, I don't know the man that pulled that trigger, but I guarantee you that man today is horrified. He can pretend otherwise. He can get all that cognitive dissonance going, that his life was at stake, and try to disclaim it. But in his quiet time, Caddy, in his silence, he knows something really bad happened that could have been avoided.
I still believe the facts matter because it's the facts that underpin the rule of law. And at some point, all of these laws and regulations and policies are there for a reason. And if you just say none of that matters, then you can have federal officials and law enforcement officials, acting in whichever way they want with absolutely no accountability. And I think then, you have a real problem. We're going to be watching Minneapolis because there are protests there, of course, today. It looks like some of them are turning a bit violent. You've got law enforcement agents firing pepper balls at protesters as we're recording this. I hope it doesn't blow up around the country because I don't think that helps anybody. And I do hope that there is a thorough investigation that people can trust. And I think that is key, that the investigation has to be credible into what actually happened up there. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back and talk about the other enormous story of the week, Venezuela and Greenland. Welcome back to the rest is Politics US. we're going to get into the latest on Greenland and Venezuela. One thing that struck me this morning, Anthony, is that we have heard an awful lot from J.D. Vance this morning on the situation in Minneapolis. Very long tweets that he is putting out. We've heard very little from him on Venezuela, and I think that points to some kind of splits that we're seeing in the administration over the use of force abroad. There's some reporting that actually J.D. Vance is super excited about the mission in Venezuela and thinks it was an incredible military success and is very keen on military intervention in America's backyard. Stephen Miller is clearly in that camp. But then you have Marco Rubio going down to the Hill, trying to explain what the plan is, perhaps giving the most cogent, and even that's got quite a lot of question marks by it, the most cogent three-part plan for their plans for Venezuela about stabilization and then have some kind of transition. But there's so much happening around Venezuela at the moment and the updates on that. But one thing that is pretty clear, I think at the end of this week, the president gave a 2-hour-long interview to journalists last night from the New York Times, which is a stunning amount of time in my history of covering the White House. It's very rare for a president in the middle of a kind of big crisis and stories to give 2 hours. He gave 2 hours and spent 75% of the time talking about the military operation and the success of the military operation. I think that's why he did the interview. He wanted to tout how successful he had been. He seemed to be kind of jazzed up on that. When White House officials went down to the Hill to speak to congressional leaders, they also, apparently those White House officials also spent 75% of the time talking about the success of the military operation, but very little time on the planning. And I think we get to the end of this week, almost a week now after the taking of Maduro, with still just not a satisfactory explanation from the administration on what the plans are for Venezuela. And Marco Rubio may try and push them as the kind of guy who has the most experience in that hemisphere, but I still don't hear that they have a real plan for the country going forwards. They're very proud of the military operation, but the day after seems to have escaped them.
Again, I'll push back slightly on that because, as it's been explained to me by people that are in the operations of this, the plan for right now, Delcy Rodriguez is going to run the country as effectively an administrator, and Donald Trump is going to call the plays. So she's the quarterback. Trump is the head coach, the offensive and defensive coordinator for right now.
She is, by the way, a diehard anti-Americanist. But
you know, she's decided she doesn't want to go to jail like Maduro, and so sometimes when you are at knife point, you become less of a diehard of anything. And it seems like she has been very pliable, and I've spoken to people that have spoken directly to her, and she's on board. So much so that you've got 30 to 50 million barrels of oil coming our way, okay, which is, again, mafia-like incentive to keep Trump off of her back in the region. And so again, it's not a perfect plan, but there is a plan. And I'm not saying the plan isn't a disaster, but there is a plan. Rubio and Vance, no mas, okay? They will not be the president of the United States come 2028. Rubio's going to go down on this because he's a flip-flopping weather vane, and he's a direct liar to the Congress. You have interviewed senators who have told you that Rubio directly lied to them. You can even ask Richard Nixon. You don't get away with that. In Richard Nixon's memoirs, he said the known liars always get taken out by the system. There is a code of ethics among the pirates that live in the Senate. If you're coming into the cloakroom and we're talking in confidence, don't lie to us. And Rubio is a known liar, okay? So he is going to go down for this. Even if this operation is successful, the people in that Senate no longer trust them. That's Republicans and Democrats. And he's a very disingenuous guy. And again, hate Donald Trump or like Donald Trump, what you see with Donald Trump and all of his manifestations of mendacity is who he is. Okay, you know, when Hillary Clinton said in Chicago, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, and then she said in New York, I'm a New York Yankees fan, imagine that in British football. People would roll their eyes and say, what are you, crazy? Okay, and so that's Rubio.
You can't be a City fan and then be a United fan. That's just like doesn't work.
Exactly. I mean, and the people are shaking their heads right now as they're walking on their hikes listening to this, because that's just the way it is. So we know Trump is a known liar. That's his brand. We've accepted it. Rubio has tried to be an honorable person early on in his career, and so he's finished.
One of the reasons that the senators are particularly disappointed about this is they knew him, of course. He came out of the Senate. He had pretty good relationships with some of these senators. And you now get, it's interesting, you get Tom Tillis, you get Kennedy coming out very forcefully against some of the policies. And I think part of that is the anger they feel towards Rubio for lying to them.
Rubio's confirmation vote, Caddy, was 99-0.
99.
So now it's a 99-0 vote, and then he goes in there and lies to everybody. I'm telling you, they're miffed.
They don't love it.
They don't love it. So let's go to Vance now. So Vance is conspicuously absent, and you know this, and I know this. Vance was closer to Rand Paul on military interventionism as recently as 3 or 4 years ago. Vance, during the 2024 campaign, was the most strident no more forever wars.
Yes.
I'm a military veteran. I see the scars of what's happened to the country. I don't want these military entanglements. Okay, so they sidelined him. They can pretend otherwise, but that's what they did. And Vance, because he's Mr., self-genius, he thinks, okay, this is great. If it goes wrong, I'll be able to disclaim myself from it because it's not my ideology. And if it goes right, I'll hitch myself holistically to the Trump administration. JD, that's not how it works. We can see your ankles hanging out of Trump's ass, okay? You are never getting away from Donald Trump.
That's gross.
All right, what can I tell you? But I just want to give people the real metaphor of what it really looks like. And you're never getting away from Donald Trump, and you own everything that the guy is doing. And, Caddy, this is going to end badly, and those two political careers are going to be extinguished. But can we go to Stephen Miller for a second, okay? Because you and I did a mini-series for our founding members on Steve Miller, and man, is he an important person in this. So tell us why Stephen Miller is so important.
Look, I'm really glad we did that series because even then, you could see when we did that back in November, he was clearly very important in the White House. He's deputy chief of staff, but that doesn't really describe what he is. It looks like he may be given a big part of the Venezuela portfolio because Marco Rubio has about 55 other roles that he's trying to do. But Stephen Miller is the guy, my understanding is, in the White House at the moment who Donald Trump really trusts to echo the views of Donald Trump. So if you want to know what Donald Trump is thinking, as opposed to Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance, about Venezuela and Greenland, listen to Stephen Miller. It's Stephen Miller who is saying nobody is going to fight us if we do use military force in Greenland, and that might makes right, effectively, is the policy of Stephen Miller. I think that is Donald Trump's view of the world. I think the problem for all of these guys right now is that the polling on this is not looking great. There was a new CBS poll, and CBS, obviously a network which is trying to get back into Trump's good graces a little bit at the moment, a CBS poll that came out saying that 70% of Americans think Trump hasn't explained his plans for Venezuela, 57% disapprove of his handling of it, 68% disapprove of military action in Venezuela if it's all about the oil. That's big majorities of Americans who are not convinced that this operation in Venezuela is worth doing and don't think they've had it explained to them, either by Marco Rubio, who's trying to do some explaining, and as you say, J.D. Vance is kind of absent on this. But if those numbers were to hold, Anthony, I think this could be a real problem for them, not just in the midterms, but for all of these players like you're suggesting in 2028.
I believe this, and I believe that there's a struggle going on inside the White House right now. I believe that they honestly are fighting over which direction they're going to take things in. And let me just give you what I think the fight is. Trump wants it all.
Yes.
Rubio is not a stupid guy. He's come back to his job at the State Department and says, wow, I'm really lying like crazy for this guy. And how is this going to look for me? And he's trying to figure out if he can calm things down, right? Remember, he went and said to the Senate, we're not going to take it by force. We're going to, quote unquote, try to buy Greenland. Now he's going to meet with the Danish officials. Okay, but I think this is a sideshow, Caddy. And so the question for our audience is, what is Trump doing with Greenland? What is the theory behind what he's doing? I can propose my theory, but I'm interested in hearing yours.
I think you're right that Rubio clearly is pushing the line that America shouldn't use military force to get Greenland. He's saying to Trump, there is nothing to be gained from taking it by force because Denmark has offered us everything we want anyway. Expand your military bases, add more military bases, access to the mining reserves, you can have it all. So Rubio's argument, and that's why he's saying this repeatedly to people in Congress, but he's also, I understand, saying it in the White House to Trump, is that you don't need to use military force because you can have it anyway. I think you're right. Trump really does want Greenland, and he's hoping that the steps would be you have some kind of referendum with a vote for independence, and then you buy it. His problem is that Denmark doesn't want to sell it, and it's not clear that a referendum vote would actually be in favor of independence anyway, particularly with the threat of an American takeover. So I think it leaves Trump in a little bit of a tricky situation. And you're right, there's a distraction element around the use of military force. But I think the distraction element's a little different. I think the distraction element could be a problem for the White House because they're not talking. This week you had Kennedy go out and try and talk about affordability in the context of healthcare. You have Trump actually do something pretty important on housing affordability, which is to try and stop private equity groups buying up large tracts of cities and jacking up the rents in those cities. It got zero attention. So the thing that Susie Wiles has tried to push, you've got to be focused on affordability. All of this, he may think this is a distraction from Epstein and that's what he wants. I think it's a distraction actually from what the American people want him to be focused on. And that's a problem.
Well, he's over-tipping on Greenland to try to come back into the middle with the Danes on something that's acceptable to him, and then he'll send out a Truth Social
saying we won.
Yeah, him and the Danes are in perfect equipoise, and he's going to get some additional military bases up in Greenland, and it stays in the territorial ambit of the Danes.
Which he could have got anyway without pissing off all of Europe.
I understand that, right. But then you don't get the attention, and then you don't get the gun off the bird of the Epstein files. You know, remember, part of the job for him is the hysteria. Part of the job is, you know, I'm here to own the libs. I'm here to have a podcast host pull their hair out or set themselves on fire over my nonsense, right? So that's his job, right? That's that he lives
attention,
for that.
Right?
Attention. Yeah, he's the number one thing. Two things. I need everybody's mind on me, and I need to make the most amount of money that I can possibly make. It's not affordability. It's not military or national security. It's none of those things. But I want to go to the private equity thing for a second, because that may or may not be legal. But this is something that we need to explain to people, because both sides are now doing this. Both sides have now decided, the left has decided that capitalism doesn't work and they need more government help to intervene on the capitalists to make things more affordable. Guess what the right has decided, Gaddy? The right has decided the same thing.
Same thing. Well, or the president has decided the same thing.
Well, remember, because the president's, again, whatever his philosophy is, or whatever his ideas are, that's what it should be.
Dictate what private equity can do, take 10% in a major company. Yeah.
Now, he took $17 billion off the market cap of Blackstone yesterday by making that announcement. Now, is it or is it not legal from a property right perspective? Do the private equity people have the right to go into the markets and buy those properties? Okay, now from a 900-year precedent in property law, the answer to that is yes. Now, if we're changing that to sort of make things more affordable, is that the right change? You see, I would argue the right change is let's work together to create more disposable income for people. Okay, and to create the positive flywheel of consumption and growth and aspirational opportunity for people, as opposed to try to mandate from the government what to do.
Donald Trump, the socialist.
Yeah, well, that's the irony,
the democratic socialist. No wonder he got on so well with Mamdani.
And remember, progressivism, okay, was a Republican idea in this country. It started with Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, and the two fathers, if we have fathers of the American middle class, two of them are Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt. One was a Republican, one was a Democrat, but they were trying to build a system where there were lots of winners. There were lots of aspirational winners. Does Trump care about that, Catty K? I'm going to answer that. No, he doesn't. NFW could care less. This is about his personal self-enrichment and everybody else can starve. And this is going to mean that over the next 3 years, the problems that we have in the society right now are going to get worse, not better. And whether people want to hear this or not, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to end up with another populist. It'll either be a left-leaning populist or a right-leaning populist who will continue to use these false prophets of promise tied to bad policy.
Meanwhile, the Danes are getting nervous. We are breaking alliances around the world, which the Chinese don't understand, because the one thing that the Chinese feared about America was its system of alliances. I'm told that was the one thing they worried about, that it was that was the asymmetrical advantage America had. And the more the Chinese tried to push against those alliances, the more it pushed East Asian countries into America's arms, or European countries into America's arms. And now America is doing exactly what the Chinese want. So if the big struggle of this century, or of the next decade or two, really is going to be between Chinese and the United States, the word in Washington is that 2025 was the year that China became America's peer. And it was pretty self-evident that America was on a self-destructive route in breaking up these alliances. And this week, in the past 2 days, whatever Marco Rubio wants to tell people on the Hill, America's done a huge amount of damage. Whatever it does, in the end with Greenland, America's already done a lot of damage to that system of alliances, which was such, forgive the pun, a trump card for it. That's where we are, and it's only the 8th of January. Good news, guys.
Caddy, I think it's such an important point about China winning here, because they've got industrial scale and manufacturing dominance, and they're building their military, and they have been more predictable on the world stage. Now, their system scares people, so no one wants to move to China, no one wants to emigrate.
I mean, this is the irony of it. Europeans and the Koreans and the Japanese and the Filipinos and the Australians do not want to replace America with China. But when China acts as it has done this week, particularly with reference to Greenland and the Danes, who could not be a better ally for the United States, it tears at the fabric of something that has been hugely valuable to America.
Not that this is an IQ test, but if you had to pick between long-term patience and stability or impetuous stupidity, I'm just wondering, which one of those two things would the average person pick? I can see that British smirk on your face. I can see you smiling.
Look, that's how the Republicans in Congress treat Donald Trump, like he's a kind of recalcitrant child.
It's bad, Gaddy.
As we mentioned, all of this talk about Greenland and Venezuela is fueling this kind of civil war with inside MAGA, not just inside the White House where there are tensions, but really you look at MAGA and there is definitely a civil war going on. And nobody embodies that more than Marjorie Taylor Greene, who resigned from Congress this week. If you want to hear more about that, in our members episode, we unpack how her very public split with Trump captures how MAGA is tearing itself apart. Here's a clip. This week, Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned from Congress.
There are deep cracks in MAGA. And this woman just took a match, struck the match, and she threw it into the kindling of that fight.
This is the story of how someone who had no early political ambitions was pulled into politics through an attraction to Donald Trump. It's a story of conspiracy theories.
It starts off with a QAnon.
Online radicalization.
The John F. Kennedy plane crash did not happen. Donald Trump is a savior.
But loyalty and notoriety only got her so far. Having been the voice of MAGA, as loyal as they come, Donald Trump turns on her.
Trump is extremely angry at her. He's furious at her.
It was that moment that exposed this big crack with inside the MAGA movement.
I do believe that this is a roadmap. I believe that you and I are going to be talking about this as we head into the midterm elections, as people start breaking from Donald Trump that don't want to be attacking Greenland, don't want to be attacking Cuba.
She may have been smart to get out.
Amen. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that little piece from that episode. If you want to hear more, become a founding member. Sign up at therestispoliticsus.com. Please join us. We have a lot of fun in those special episodes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
the investigation? What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy's protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous.
Monique, you're the legal analyst here. He has absolute immunity.
Well, listen, you know, out of all of the things that have been said, that was the one video that I bothered you with the text about because it so incenses me. You know, Don, I don't know if you know this. Chuck Ramsey, former Chief Ramsey, was a former client of mine when I worked for the D.C. Office of the Attorney General. So I understand police cases. I understand police misconduct. I understand wrongful death. I understand good practices and bad practices, as Dr. Alexander was just discussing with us. And for a Yale-educated lawyer, because that's what J.D. Vance is, he's not an ignoramus like the current president. He's not an inexperienced, unqualified Kristi Noem who has no business being in charge of DHS. He is a former serviceman. He is high school, college, law school educated. He's a Yale lawyer, and he is presenting lawlessness as if it is okay. He knows that after action is required. He knows that investigation is required for an officer-involved shooting, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's federal. He knows that that is required by law to happen. Federal guidelines, local guidelines, state, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if the officer is going to get qualified immunity eventually or absolute immunity eventually, which so many of us disagree with, which is why we supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But he's standing there, and he is as still a sworn officer of the court, someone with a bar card, I think, saying, due process, who cares? Citizen dead, who cares? If he's going to get immunity anyway, then why bother investigating? And he's acting like he doesn't know that there could be violations of state law even for a federal official. And so to me, this view we have, the way this administration views, not the way that they are untethered to the law, where they feel they have no obligation other than to themselves. And that is my biggest concern. Other than for Renee Good and her family, my biggest concern right now is that this could be any of us. And they will operate with impunity the way the Vice President of the United States did just then.
I have to say, when I listened to that lady and gentleman, I was outraged that he would stand there and be so brazen as to make that, even if you feel that way and you have a leadership role in this country, there's a way to say things and a way not to. And this is the way not to. There's a way to bring people together, and there's a way to divide them. And that's what he's doing, is dividing people. He could have said they have a job to do. And we're sorry for that the woman lost her life. We're investigating it. We don't see even if he said right now, we don't see anything that the officer did wrong, but it must be investigated. Okay, fine. He could say that. But what he stood there and did, to me, was the worst in human behavior that I think that I have seen from this administration, and that is saying a lot. That wasn't the end of what he said, because he also said that this woman, he's saying that this woman, it's her own fault that she is dead. Here it is.
You said earlier that there's a left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and make it impossible for ICE officers to do their job. You told my colleague just now that there's an investigation going on into that network.
Yep.
So If everything that you say is true, how does being part of that network justify being shot?
Well, being part of the network doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE officer with your car, that's what justifies being shot. It's not a good thing, by the way, but when you force somebody to engage in self-defense, it's almost a preposterous question. I'm not saying that funding some of this stuff justifies capital punishment. Nobody would suggest that. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car, and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life, and that is the tragedy. Now, there may be other violations of the law and other penalties that are associated with those violations of the law. For example, if you are funding violence against our law enforcement officers, I'm not a prosecutor. My guess is that's not the sort of thing that earns capital punishment, but it should sure as hell earn you a few years in prison if you're funding the effort to try to assault our law enforcement officers.
Cedric?
You know, Don, for the last 25 years, number of city, state, and federal agencies, and more frequent city police departments, if you will. I have the responsibility of keeping those men and women safe every day, those that go out to protect, to serve. They have families, they have loved ones, they have been properly trained, they're held to a level of accountability in the service that they provide. And what's important to me is that they go out, they do their jobs, and they're able to return home the way that they left work that morning or that night. But also have a responsibility of protecting the communities that expect for us, police, if you will, to conduct ourselves in a professional manner that provides service to all people equally, regardless of where they're from or what they look like or what their beliefs happen to be. And many of us, like myself, across this country, we take a lot of pride in those positions, those leadership positions as chiefs, etc. When I hear this type of rhetoric coming from a leader in this country who has great influence and who sits in the highest office in the land, and without any accountability whatsoever, that is really troubling, because what you're saying to ICE agents is that go out, do whatever you want to do. We're going to defend it. We're not going to worry about investigating it. And if we do investigate it, we're telling you already, you're going to be immune from any penalty of any sort. And practically, not practically, that is literally what is being said. I've been to a number of officer-involved shootings. Some that were pretty straightforward, that the officers were in the right. Some that were not so clear and created some pause and concern. And even some that should not have ever happened. But in each one of those cases, when I go and I speak to the public, Don, and I've been on your show numerous times over the years, you have always...
Plenty, a lot, tons.
Right, tons. You have always heard me say, and have some sense of balance, that this must be investigated by a reputable source, and all the facts must be gathered so that regardless of what we see, it's still some legitimate agency is giving some credibility to the findings of that investigation. But in this case, which is what's so bizarre here, is that even if they are conducting some type of investigation, your leadership in the country has already told you they're going to be immune to any penalty. So the credibility of any report or any investigation is going to be highly questioned. But here again, your eyes